Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Kavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm looking at Frames by Imaginando. Now, Frames, that's the right pronunciation by the way. I've heard this called some freaky stuff by various YouTubers. Not mentioning any names, but yeah, it's pronounced Frames. And before I get started, I've got two pieces of good news. First thing is, it's the year anniversary of Frames. So Imaginando are doing a half-price sale on Frames. Now this sale started on the 30th of March and it's going to last for 7 days. Do the math yourself there. I don't want to accidentally give you the wrong date. So that's a great deal, great deal. This is a seriously fantastic synth. I absolutely love it. I strongly recommend it. So that's the first piece of good news. Second piece of good news, I've got 5 copies of any Imaginando app. Okay, and listen, not just iOS apps, desktop app as well, to give away to subscribers to the channel. Now, this is brilliant because, I mean, Frames, the full price of Frames is $100 and something on desktop. So yeah, this is a great offer. So look at the pinned comment at the top of the YouTube comment section for the details of what you've got to do to win. As I say, only available to subscribers, but if you're not a subscriber yet, you can subscribe now and just follow the instructions in the pinned comment. So this is going to be a detailed walkthrough video, as I usually do. I'm going to first start off by just saying some of the great things about Frames to kind of whet your appetite and make you understand why it's going to be worth your while to watch this video in full and actually learn how to use this synth properly, because it's absolutely brilliant. So first of all, let's look at some of the cool things about it. Now, it does a lot of stuff. It is a granular synthesizer. It also has subtractive synthesis and FM synthesis, and you can combine those. And that is just insane. For example, you can use one layer, which you import a sample into, and that can be the FM modulator to modulate another layer, and that other layer could contain a sample or a waveform or whatever. So like that is seriously crazy. So it's got 4 different layers, and it's got a bunch of different FM types that you can apply if you want. And now you don't have to do any FM synthesis, so this synth can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. If you just want one layer with one sine wave, then that's possible. That's what you can do. So there's a lot of power in this synth. What else have we got? One of the things I love about it is that it's got seriously brilliant presets, including a couple of really quality in-app purchase preset packs by people like Supremeja or Perplex. Those are both really great packs. Imaginando also has a great pack that they did called Sounds of Saxophone. But even just the factory presets, there are a lot of them, and they are really good. This is the kind of thing that I call a one-finger synth. These presets here, seriously, you really don't need to do anything with them. Just press down a key, and you've basically got pretty much a whole track. Now we'll be listening to it in a second. So the presets are great quality, really great quality. Another cool thing I love about it is it's got a preset randomizer. So you just press this randomize button, you can create random presets in a second. What else have we got? I love the way that you've got this view here where we can view, for example, let's say here, I've got layer 1 and I'm viewing the waveform of layer 1. And then down here, currently I'm viewing the control panel for layer 1. But if I press this unlock thing, now this is no longer locked to layer 1, and instead, for example, I can view layer 2, and I can view the waveform for layer 2. So we've got a lot of flexibility there, a lot of flexibility. What else? As you can see down here, I got a chorder, so we can play chords. We can also play notes from these chords over here. These are going to change, by the way, as we change chord. I'm playing this with my mouse, by the way, so forgive me if the timing's not great. But we can also just switch to a regular keyboard. And of course, you can use the keyboard in your host as well. You can change the size of this keyboard and stuff as well. One complaint, though, from some people is that the keyboard maybe could actually be set up that you could have more keys than this. It doesn't have a very wide range. But again, not a huge problem at all. Just use your in-app keyboard if you want. Personally, I wouldn't often use this standalone. So those are a couple of the features. And, there are tons of other great features, but I'll go through some of those in the video. One thing I want to mention is that it's got a very good manual, but one thing that kind of annoys me is that you have to view the manual online. There's no in-app manual. I really like it when apps have a manual that's built in, like you just have a little help button, for example, you press it and you can open the manual in the app itself. I also like it when you can export that as a PDF. In fact, with this one, there's no PDF version. All there is the web version. And personally, I find that annoying because when I read a manual, I like to highlight things, underline things, and so on. So that's one small suggestion I would have. But great manual, and although it's a very deep synth, and the manual it's not a wordy manual, but it gives you all the information that you need pretty much. It's very clear. It's a very well-written manual. So without further ado, let's get started. First, let's just have a listen to some example presets, and then I'll walk you through how to use the app. Okay, so let me choose, say, most recent in-app purchase preset pack, Glitches from the Heart by Perplex on. I hope that's the right pronunciation. So let's just have a little listen. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a lot going on in these presets. Now, another thing worth mentioning, I love that it's got the tag cloud over here. So we can just go in and click, let's say we want ARP type presets. Let me play in a couple of notes. Or I really like this one, Emma at the Beach. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention in my introduction that is massive is that this is MPE. And it's funny because I love MPE, but I often actually forget that this is an MPE synth for the reason that the presets themselves are so complex, it almost feels like you don't really need MPE for this to be expressive. Okay, we'll listen to some more presets as we go through from time to time. Now, for now, let me go back to the factory presets. And I want to choose, let's see. Okay, first of all, I want to turn off those filters. I just want the normal list. And I want this boxy music preset. So let's have a little look here at what we've got, right? So we've got this lock button, right? Now that will lock these two views. So if I change to layer 2 here, this is also going to change to layer 2. So for example, at the moment, what we're seeing here is we're seeing the waveform for layer 2, and down here we're seeing the control panel for layer 2. So let's look at what the different panels that we've got are. So we've got our waveform panel, control panel. Now, what this shows will depend on the type of synthesis we've got. if it's granular as it is here, we'll have a lot more buttons than we will if it's just a waveform. So I won't go into detail now about what these do, but I'm going to do that shortly. Now then here we have two envelopes. So the first one is for amplitude, the second one is for the filter. We got a bunch of controls for those down here. Now here we've got the mod matrix. You can see we've got our sources and our destinations. So note that there are 4 different LFOs, 2 envelope generators. We got all these different destinations here: level, pan, cutoff, filter resonance, and so on. We got 2 pages here that we navigate with these arrows. You can see here more sources. Keyboard can be a source, and so on and so on. Velocity, aftertouch. Some of these things are important for MPE. You want to set up your patches to play expressively with an MPE controller. You're going to want to use things like velocity and aftertouch and so on, assigned to different parameters. Okay, so here we've got our LFO page. You can see we've got no less than 4 LFOs and a choice of 6 different LFO waveforms, including a few different things related to how the LFO operates. Then we've got an arpeggiator in here. Again, we'll look at that in more detail later. Then over here we have some global section where we have different things like, for example, is it polyphonic, monophonic, turning legato on and off, controlling the glide for legato. Here we've got our FM mode. So this is where we turn FM on and off, and we've got a whole bunch of different types. So if we just click through here, we can just get a little look at some of the possibilities. I can't remember. I think there are maybe 12 different FM modes or something. Anyway, there are quite a few of them. We'll look at those in more detail later. So we've got a delay. So each of the layers has a send for the delay. So delay can be separately sent out from each layer. So you got quite a lot of control. Reverb here and some filter settings over here. Master, pre-gain. Okay, so these are the way these panels work. And again, remember that it's important to pay attention to whether lock is on or off. If you want to view, let's say, layer 1 waveform here, and down here you want to view layer 3 waveform, then you're going to want to make sure that the lock is off. Okay, so let's have a little listen first of all here. Okay, now I'm going to press lock for a second. I'm going to click on the control panel here. And we look over here. This is very important. So here we set whether the layer is active or not. So we can see with any of the presets how many different layers are active. So if we see here, layer 1 active, layer 2 active. Notice, by the way, these are color coded as well. Layer 3 active. Layer 4 also active. So this preset has 4 layers. Now we have a solo button for each layer. So let's listen to the separate layers first. Okay, so that's layer 1. Now you can only solo 1 layer at a time. So if I click here on layer 2 and press solo, it will turn off the solo in layer 1 that was on just now. And now we're only going to hear layer 2. Notice, by the way, this envelope here, animated, very nice. Forgot to solo this, layer 3. I like that. Layer 4, again, I'll solo it. Okay, so here we're seeing the type of synth engine for each layer. So we can see here layer 4 is granular, layer 3 granular, layer 2 granular, layer 1 granular. So in this particular preset, all of the layers are granular. So what I'm going to do is take layer 4 and we'll take a little look in more detail at this layer. We'll solo it to just see how the granular synthesis is working in this app. So here we might want to, for example, have the waveform shown here and have the control section shown here. So you can see there all I'm doing is holding one note. Now, when you open up a preset and open up a layer, one thing that you might want to do if you want to go in and explore is go to the matrix, and as you can see here, LFO1 is modulating the offset, right? So that's why we're seeing this movement, where the start point is going along, so this is being controlled by the LFO. So for the purposes of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is turn that off. So the simplest way to do that is I'm just going to reset everything here for this. Are you sure you want to reset all modulation? Yes. I'm just going to turn off all the modulation. Okay. And so now you see, if we wanted to do what was happening just now, I mean, one thing we could do is just move the offset knob by hand. Right? So you can see here what offset is doing. That's moving the start point. It's moving where the start position is on the waveform. But we'll look at all of these. We'll look at this little section first. It's kind of hard to know where to start sometimes with this because there's so many different angles we can approach it from. First thing I'm going to do is increase the size a little bit. So you can see here as I move this size slider, this is opening up. But you can also see now that things are happening a lot more slowly, right? I mean, one thing we could do here is turn up the density, and we're going to get more happening there. We could turn down the size a little bit. Now, another thing that we'll need to be aware of if we're trying to figure out what is going on here is any of these random knobs, if they're on. And they're off at the moment, so that's good. So that'll keep things simple. Now, let's look at this little window thing. So each of these grains has a window. I guess that's kind of like an envelope almost. So it's sort of like the shape of the grain. So you can kind of imagine how that's going to affect the sound. Here we're going to have something with kind of harder edges. Another thing I'm just going to do is just turn off the delay here for a second, just to keep things simple. Now, let's look at this tune knob. So the tune knob is going to be important. Let's say you import a sample, or you can also do live record, by the way, right? That's why I have this loaded here. If you can see, it's actually loaded in an FX slot, because later in the video, I'm going to show you loading an instrument here and actually doing real-time processing. So we can do real-time processing of any audio app that we're playing in this slot, and we can also record that into frames as well if we want. So window that will control how hard or soft and so on in some ways these grains sound. Tune, you're going to want to make sure that you've got a tuned instrument, right? So there are various things you can do. One thing is the tune knob here. Because when you record something in, there's no guarantee that what you're going to end up with is going to actually sound like a C. And if you wanted to do that, then you're going to have to play around. So one thing is the tune here. Another thing is the coarse control over here. So you can see 36. So that's 36 semitones. So that can go up or down 3 octaves. Oh, nice. Now we can turn off the quantization and then we'll get complete seamless pitch shifting. And by the way, double tap to reset to default. We can also just quickly adjust octaves here. So I mean, we've really got a huge range when you consider we could pitch this up 3 octaves and then here we'd be getting another 3 octaves. Now here we've got our filter cutoff and filter type. So here we've got a 4-pole low pass filter. We've got the resonance here. So we click through here, we can come to different filter types like bandpass and so on. So play around and find something that's going to suit the sound that you're looking for. Panning. Level, okay, fine. Now let's see what over here then we can play with. So obviously offset. Depending on the sample you've got, this is going to make a huge difference changing where you start. So the offset combined with the size and density, these 3 are going to make a massive amount of difference. If we get small sizes, we're going to get things that can be extremely intense, especially with high density levels. And particularly depending on the filter, you know, if you put the resonance up or something. Now with the density, we have a few different types. So here, timed, sync, and even. So even, that will distribute these at an even distance. Here this represents a time value. And here we've got a sync to, you know, 8th notes and so on and so on. Now here we can adjust the amount of randomization of these. So here we're going to control the randomization of density, randomization of size, randomization of offset, and random color will basically change. So this is the amount of randomization, and this is going to be the color of the randomization, the type of randomization. Let's take a look at that. For example, maybe density is an easy one to look at it with first. Let me slow this down a little bit. So I'm changing the random color. Let's see with offset. So do you see now some of these grains are starting to appear over here, even though the offset line is here because it's randomized, so some of them are going to start in other places. Now same here with size. So watch how far they go. You can see they can pass beyond here. Now, amp spread. So we can do tune as well. So we could randomize the tuning. So here we're going to get a randomization of the amplitude. Stereo spread. So I mean, remember that we're just working here with just one layer. This is just one layer. Let's unsolo this layer. It's a huge fun playing around with these grains. So here we've got our send to the delay. And reverb. So here we're just adjusting the send amount. If we want to do more, we're going to have to go into the global panel and play around with things like the delay time and so on. We got high pass cutoff and low pass cutoff for the delay, reverb, decay, damping, high pass filter. So let's look at the envelope section. Maybe use a different preset. Okay, let's try this for example. All right, so I've clicked on the envelope section. Now, first thing, very important, we have this link button here. So let's see, there's a few different ways that I can change the attack of this. So one thing is I can just drag here. Right now, look, I'm dragging that. Let's see layer 3. You can see that hasn't affected layer 3's envelope, right? So we can have individual control of the envelopes for each layer, or we can link them together. So what we do then is we press this link button. So let's see here, let's put this one like that. And you can see now here the attack has changed on all those layers. So I love the visualization here. You can see this is just waiting here until I release. And then once I take my finger off, we see that release curve in action. Another thing is here we can use this button to invert it. I mean, that can come up with some crazy stuff. So we can also just use these, and we can switch between these two different things here, which will give us slightly different parameters. Like here, this is controlling the maximum amount of the attack. Maximum speed, I should say. So you've got your choices there. Attack velocity, release velocity. So these envelopes can be huge fun, huge fun. Let's go on to another preset. Go through a couple of presets and see something that sounds like it might be interesting to play with the matrix. Well, let's see what's going on in the matrix here. Okay, so LFO4 is modulating the FM. Right, so you can see how quickly we can adjust that. Now, one thing worth pointing out is that you can see here I'm trying to adjust offset and nothing's happening. And you might think that's a bug, but what that is going to mean is that basically in this layer, if we look at this layer, this is obviously not granular. So this is, let's see, let's go into the matrix here. See, now we can adjust offset because this is granular. You see how that's adjusting there now? Let's go back into that matrix. Let's put something really radical. So again, go to the matrix, see what that is. So that is LFO1. So let's go and take a look at LFO1 and let's say change the rate. So let's slow it right down. And now let's look at that waveform again. So you can see that's happening a lot more slowly now. So huge world of possibilities in there with that matrix and with the different LFOs, different LFO shapes. Different rates and so on. So yeah, this video could get very long if I go into everything. I mean, these are things that are easy enough to experiment with yourself. This, just remember that you can use this to reset, to revert a patch to its original state, by the way. I like that. Now let's see the arpeggiator. Okay, let's play with the arpeggiator a little bit. So we've got an up and a down mode. This is only letting me do two things. I think it's because it's an MPE mode, maybe? Oh, there we go. Okay. Up and down. Up, down, down, up, so it'll repeat the lowest note. Random. We got our gate. Here we've got how many octaves it will repeat the pattern over. Get the idea. Now we can turn sync on and off. So here it's going to be quantized rate. Lovely. Get that panic button. Okay. What else is worth looking at here? Okay, we haven't looked at FM yet, right? So let's take a look at FM. So to do this, let's look at it in a simple way. Let's scroll back up, and right up at the top we get the default patch. So let's open this default patch. So now here, there's nothing going on anywhere. So let's see, let's click on control, and for layer 1, so here we have our choice. Do we want a grain or oscillator? And here we choose our waveform type: sine, saw, square, triangle. So let's just keep that as a sine wave. Let's go in and let's get another sine wave in here, and let's say, let's change the octave on it. Let me just bring the gain down a little bit. Okay, and let's just start off with that to keep things simple initially. So let's see here, for example. So if we click this, now we're only using 2 layers. If we turn this on now, layer 2 is going to modulate layer 1. But it won't do anything until we start to adjust the FM amount in here on layer 2. So there we go, now we've got FM synthesis. So well, then what we can do is get really crazy. So for example, we could go into layer 3 and we could load something. So let's just load something. Anything. Okay, and now let's see this mode, for example. Here, 2 and 3 will modulate layer 1. So, you know, you can see how amazingly complex that could get. I mean, you could have 4 different waveforms in there, all doing crazy granular synthesis and modulating each other in all kinds of crazy ways. Let's just maybe go through. I'll find a preset or two and play around with the FM a little bit in them. Let's see here, for example, what's going on. So we can see here this is already using FM. So here we're seeing layer 3 FM amount. Turning that up, turning it down. So here layer 2 is feeding back on itself. Let's play around with layer 2. This one might be quite radical. Yeah. How damn crazy can this get? Absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. So, if you're enjoying this, by the way, everyone, if you're finding it useful, do please remember to give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Now, let's look at another thing. Let's look at using frames to do some live processing. So here I've got Step Poly ARP, which I reviewed recently and is absolutely fantastic. Going into Ice Gear Mersenne. Now I put frames on, and let's just go to default patch here, and let's record. Now here we can see the live input, or we can see this waveform that has been recorded. Now with the input, it won't do anything until I actually start pressing a key. And here we're controlling the length of the buffer that is being recorded. So this is a very short one, it's just 1/8 of a second. 1/4 of a second. It's a 1/2 a second buffer. That's a second. You can see it can take a while, okay, for the buffer to build up if we choose a longer one. It's 2-second buffer. We can freeze the buffer. So now this is frozen. Okay, now also what we've got here, we can record the waveform in. You just use the record button to do that, right? I just did that already a minute ago. So let me just go back to this input one here. So first of all, we can do things like, right, we can play with that window. So you can see here with this shape of window, it's getting a little bit glitchy. I think let's bring it back to a smoother one like that. Let's bring the octaves up a little bit. And there's a lot of density on that. So let's bring that density down. Another thing is we could increase the size. So obviously you're going to have to play around here, but You can see this is just like insane fun to play around with, putting different stuff in here, either processing it live or recording it. And then when you've got that waveform, what you can also do is you can do stuff like you can select parts and you can cut, for example. So hopefully now, if all works according to plan, it should cut this section out. This operation is irreversible. Okay, what the hell? Let's try it. Has that cut that out? Let's see. So here we've got this little thin bit. If it cuts it, then we're going to have a fat part at the start. Let's see. Yes, you can see it's cut that out, and now we've got this, it's starting with that fat part that was over here earlier. Brilliant. We've got copy and paste as well. Oh man. You know, I'm trying to avoid saying the word powerful in this video because in a recent YouTube video, someone, I think it was Iostrakon, said, who else takes a drink every time McCluskey says powerful? And someone was saying, yeah, I'm only 3 minutes in and I'm drunk already. But come on, this is seriously powerful. I like the low densities. Let's put a bit of random on it. Play with the offset randomization. A bit more density. Put a bit of delay. A little bit of reverb. And remember that this is MPE, so we've got per note pitch bend. Amazing. So I think the last thing I'd like to do is just let you hear a few examples of some of the in-app purchase packs, like this Supremeja one, for example. This has some super intense stuff. It's a bit too low. You see what I mean? I'm just playing one note there. If you like ambient stuff, experimental, soundscapey, it's just a brilliant synth. But you know, as I showed earlier, you just take in, you record something, record in one layer, record in a little bell, a couple of bell sounds, go in, mess around with Granular with that. You can do amazing amount of stuff just with one little layer. I just realized actually a couple of things that I forgot to mention in the control there. Like, for example, let's try and find one that has a waveform. Right. Let's look at the control section for that. I forgot to just mention about things like the window the way this can move. So we have here this end thing, and this is not going to loop, but here it's going to loop. And then here we're going to get a ping pong. Now remember, there's some offset randomization or something going on here as well. But you can see the way those are going backwards and forwards now. So we have a few things that we can play around with here. Let's look at this Sounds of Saxophone patch, which is one of Imaginando's own in-house ones. Again, I'm just playing one note because there's so much going on in these. I'd like you to hear how complex they are without any kind of complex keyboard playing. I love this pack. Now here, Perplex on glitches from the heart, some beautiful ones in here too. These are all great packs. Let's let you see the waveforms and stuff. I mean, I could just watch this for hours. Look at that. Again, you can have great fun by going in and experimenting with soloing different layers. This here, layer 2. Layer 3, let's solo that. So, you know, some people might find this a bit busy. If you find it busy, just go in and just solo some layers. It is a pity though you can only solo one layer at a time. It would be quite nice if you could solo 2. Ah, well actually you can. All you've got to do, sorry, is just turn active on or off. Forget that last comment. Beautiful. Love this one. Love it. It wouldn't be hard to make a whole track out of this. I mean, that's basically like one of those 30-second interval tracks in a Boards of Canada album. Bang, right there. There you go. So we can see a bit of madness going on here in the matrix. Let's go back and listen to a few more of the Supremeja ones. Super eerie and intense. Real kind of horror movie soundtrack stuff. It's brilliant. Even the delays as you transition between presets sound great. Well, I don't think I need to go through all of them for you to see that all of these packs are extremely interesting. Well worth purchasing. Serious congratulations to Imaginando on an amazing synth. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything important that I haven't mentioned. Well, there is one thing. It's got MIDI Learn, and the way the MIDI Learn works is really easy. So here's the MIDI Learn button up in the top left. You turn it on, and you can see that different things will get blacked out. And so if you want to assign one of those, just click it, and then twiddle your knob on your controller that you've obviously attached using the routing and so on, and that's going to get assigned. So great that it's got MIDI Learn. So let's just go over, in conclusion, some of the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like. I'll be repeating to some extent maybe some of the things that I said in my introduction. So first of all, fantastic presets. I mean, the factory presets themselves are brilliant. The currently three, and there's going to be another one coming out soon, by the way, in-app purchase packs are all well worth getting as well. Also, super cool that it's got the preset randomization button. Like all randomizers, the results from that will vary. Sometimes they'll be great, sometimes not so much. So let's try. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, not bad at all. I also like that it's got preset arrow buttons. I mean, there are so many synths that leave out the arrow buttons. It drives me crazy. I love the fact that you can do the live granulation, or it's just very easy as well to just load it up in the FX slot. So either for the live processing or to just record your samples in. But it's also very easy to use the inbuilt file system to import different samples and things. So real ease of use there. What else? I love the fact that we've got granular synthesis, subtractive synthesis, and FM all rolled into one. I love the fact that we can use samples as FM operators. We can use them to modulate other layers. I mean, that's really brilliant. I really like the way that you can view different things on the screen at the same time. So, you can see, for example, the waveform and the control section for one layer, or you can unlock and then see waveforms for two different layers at the same time. If there's a waveform in there, which there isn't here. But yeah, that's a great feature as well. One thing I did mention, I think at the start, that I'd just like to repeat is that it annoys me that there's no PDF version of the manual. I would really like there to be a PDF. I do understand why they don't, because Imaginando are a developer that update their apps regularly, so they might feel that PDFs would go out of date a bit quickly. But still, I do like having a PDF version that I can make my own notes on. Currently, you can only access the manual online on their site. And it's not just one document, like you've got to kind of scroll through. You get kind of like a menu, and you can only access different parts with clicks. You've got to click through the different headers to read all the different sections of the manual. So I do wish that there was an in-app manual. I mean, an in-app manual is a great way, because then it's always going to update with each update. And it's really nice when developers allow you to export the in-app manual as a PDF. So that's something, it's a small thing, but it is something I would like to see. But I am glad that they've got a good manual, because a lot of developers don't do good manuals. The manual is thorough, but it's not overly detailed. It doesn't take too long to work through. I think in about an hour, you could go through the manual and get a pretty good idea of the synth. I love the fact that it's got the keyboard, or it's got the quarter, and it's nice that it has these little things as well, that you can actually play your notes when you're playing different chords. Oh, that one was a bit intense. But yeah, nice that we've got the choice between the quarter and the traditional keyboard. Also extremely, extremely nice that it is MPE. And again, MPE, you can map everything using the matrix. So do remember that the matrix has 2 pages, and if you want to make a preset MPE compatible, all you'll have to do is just go in and modify things like velocity and aftertouch and so on. I don't think there's any way to use release as modulation, so that's a pity. A lot of MPE synths leave that out, and it does look like that has been left out here. Maybe I'm missing that, but I don't see it. I don't see any way to assign note off, right, as a modulation source. So that's a pity. That's one thing that could maybe be added. Another small thing is that the hold button doesn't work when it's in MPE mode. What else? Well, I guess that's most of it, really. I think that's pretty much everything. What a brilliant synth. Seriously, great sounds, great presets, amazing sound design possibilities. So much fun to use. Serious congratulations to Imaginando. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you're watching this at the time of release, not only have I got copies of any Imaginando app, whether for desktop or iOS, to give away, 5 copies to give away, but also do remember that Frames is on half-price sale at the moment for at least another couple of days. I'm making this video on a Thursday. I think I'm probably going to put it up on Friday. There should, at that point, still be at least 3 days or maybe even 4 of the sale left. So definitely snap this up if you haven't bought it yet. Strongly recommend it. Strongly recommend it. If you like this kind of thing, I'm pretty sure if you haven't watched it, you would love my video on Apparillo by Sugar Bytes, another crazy and very powerful synth. All right, take it easy, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please do give this a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. I nearly always have apps to give away with my videos, as well as doing super deep dives into stuff. If you can, please do support me on PayPal. Another way you can support the channel is by watching some ads. It does make a difference, and I've mentioned in the past that I've noticed that more people have been watching ads, and I can actually see that that is putting up the revenue that I get from YouTube. You know, I put a hell of a lot of time into these videos, so really, everyone, I seriously appreciate your support. All right, thanks again, and thanks again to Imaginando for such a generous giveaway. Fantastic that they agreed to allow me to let people get desktop apps, because at the moment this is mostly it's strictly an iOS channel, but that is going to be changing soon. I will start doing some videos on desktop stuff as well. All right, everyone, see you in the next video. Take it easy. Cheers.